What's up, everybody? What's going on YouTube? It's RobLive. We are back here with you. As always, we got the man with the plan behind the keyboard, Mr. Jim. How you doing, Jim?
What's up, man? We're doing good.
It is not. I'm jumping ahead. Did I say Super Bowl Sunday? NFL Sunday. I think it's the first weekend of the NFL. Just to give you guys a time reference here. But we wanted to spend this Sunday with somebody who I find to be like one of the most courageous people I've ever met in person. Today on RobLive, we have Estella Hulbert. Did I pronounce everything correctly?
You did.
Yes. I worked hard on that. Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And yes, I wanted to start out by sharing a little bit about my mission recently, and that is mental health awareness. Your story kind of revolves around this idea of mental health and how we manage to get through things. And when I talked to Jim, because those who don't know, Jim, we haven't mentioned it lately, is a teacher. He's an educator, and his specialty is doing things like podcasts and working with the kids on editing, producing, and he's constantly asking, like, okay, Rob, what is your purpose? Who's your audience? What are you trying to convey across? Today, I think more than anything is healing. That, to me, this is part of a healing process for you. And so I just want to thank you for having the courage to be here. I wasn't sure, when I reached out to you, because we're both on Facebook together, I wasn't sure what your response might be, given your situation and what everything you're going through. And we'll share with the audience in a little bit, because some of our members are from across the United States, may not be aware of exactly what your current situation is. But I just want to thank you for having the courage to share today. I really think this is going to help some people. And
I hope so.
And I hope, it's a healing process for all of us. So, let's start from the beginning. You're from Hanford.
Yes. I'm from Hanford.
And I'm convinced that every single living soul in that community knows you. Were you very popular growing up? Like, was that?
No, actually, I was one of the quiet ones. I mean,
really?
Yes. And Michelle can attest to that too. Even at work, I'm very quiet. I have my certain people that I talk to. But I was friends with everyone, I guess. But I mean, I wasn't in like the popular group or anything.
No, you weren't like a prom queen.
No.
Who were you in high school? I always ask that because I'm a high school teacher. I want to picture that version of you.
Kind of like, I guess.
Were you into anything in particular, extracurricular?
I was in FBLA.
Okay, yeah, Future Business Leaders.
And the Mesa Club. I don't think Mesa's around anymore.
Is Mesa?
Mathematics,
oh, the math one.
Engineering and science.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking Mensa in my head. That's another group.
Yeah, that's a different group. Yeah.
So you're in the clubs.
In the clubs.
Not the dance clubs.
No, not the dance clubs. I wasn't old enough. But then I was also the stat keeper for the JV basketball team.
Okay.
So I mean, I had different groups.
Were you an athlete as?
Not in high school.
Because I know you were involved in athletics now.
Yeah, I'm involved in helping the boards and stuff. I did play softball, rec league softball, and I did 1 year of summer softball.
Okay.
But I wasn't athletic in high school, I guess.
Class of?
92.
Class of 92. Yes. I'm class of 91. So, yeah. Can we get a shout out to 92?
92.
There it is. Michelle's missing all the good sound effects. We'll play them for you later, Michelle. Her friend Michelle came with her today. And so you get through high school. When did you start getting into corrections?
I didn't get into corrections until 2000. Let's see, Zachary was born in 2003, 2004.
Corcoran, right? I
went to Corcoran. I started in the office, the records office, as an office assistant, and then just promoted up from office assistant. I went to office supervisors, services supervisor. Excuse me.
Yes.
Then from there, I went to correctional case record analyst, and then now I'm correctional case record supervisor. So it'll be 20 years.
20 years, wow.
20
just
years.
Moving on up. Mm-hmm. That's good. So do you enjoy being out there at the prison? And
I do.
Do you have
I
direct
like my job.
connection with the inmates, or you just?
It's more indirect. I basically review their files, make sure they've been sentenced correctly. When they get ready to be released, I'm the second to the last signature for them to go out.
Okay, that's a very vital part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay, And so within all this time, you were also getting highly involved in community stuff, right?
Yes.
Now, was that because of your children, or was it before the kids came in?
Because of the children. Yes.
Okay, so your firstborn was Ryan.
Ryan, yes.
And she was, what, 2005 born?
She was born end of 2004.
2004. And then you had Zachary.
Zachary.
A year later.
2003.
2003. And so during that.
No, Ryan was 2001, sorry.
Uh-oh.
End of 2001, not 2004.
Okay.
2001, and then Zachary was 2003.
Yes. So 2-year difference there.
14 months.
14 months.
14
Yeah.
months.
I think mine are 13 months. Is that an Irish twins? Is that
That's
what
what I think they call
Irish twins?
Yeah.
You know that? Have you heard that term, Jim? Okay, so the poor Irish, they get blamed for a lot of stuff because this is the second one I've heard. So Irish twins is when you have back-to-back babies. An Irish goodbye, did you know this one?
No.
Is when you just bounce from a party and you don't say goodbye. I did that like a month ago. Full disclosure, I did that. You know what it is? Okay, I'm just going to throw it out there. When you leave a party, and especially being, Mexican, like you shake hands, you say goodbye.
Everyone.
It takes forever.
Yes.
So Michelle, I think she's going to back me up. She's laughing in the background. It's a half hour, right? And so sometimes I'm like, hey, I need to go. And I don't want to do the half hour song and dance. And so I just kind of glide out. And so I went to a house party for a teacher over the summer, right? Stephanie Deckman, I apologize. It was a teacher pool party. And it got towards the end, and I knew a lot of people there, and I had a great time. But I had to be somewhere else in about 10, 20 minutes. And so I went to the car, and I was going to grab something from the car, and I go, you know what? I'm in the car. I didn't leave anything behind, and I left.
Just go.
And she was like, hey, what's up with the Irish goodbye? And I was like, oh, there's a word for it.
Ooh.
So add that one to the vocabulary there. So your kids were born back to back.
Back to back.
What were they like as kids, like babies?
They were just balls of energy. I was able to stay home for about a year after Zachary was born. So sometimes it was overwhelming because, yes, I had two in diapers.
Yeah. That's
trying
right.
Trying to get them to nap at the same time. It was crazy, but they were just balls of energy, interested in any little thing.
Now we know they both were involved in sports.
Yes.
Was that something that came early in life, or was that something you guys introduced them to?
We introduced them to it. Ryan was the first, and we started her with gymnastics. Trying to get
tumbling, get the hand-eye coordination going.
Get that going. And then after gymnastics, it was then soccer.
Okay.
So then when Zachary became old enough to play, because he didn't want to do gymnastics. Actually, they really didn't have opinions back then, but I could tell he wasn't interested. I mean, because he went and he watched Ryan and his cousin Jillian doing gymnastics. He's like, nah, not for me. So he went into soccer.
You said something right now. I feel like it's a double-edged sword. You said they didn't really have opinions. Mm-hmm. When they're young and they just do whatever mom says, it's kind of fun.
Yes.
But then you get this concern, like, I don't want them to be followers their whole life.
Right.
And so you start to have this desire that they do have an opinion. Mm-hmm. And then you worry a little bit. And then they hit the teen years, and they've got an opinion on everything. Yes. Right? And then you're like, okay, can we go back to when you would just listen to me? Jim, did you have that with the girls? Jim's got 2 daughters.
Mm-hmm. No, not too much.
So was it always opinionated, or we just kind of listen what dad and mom suggest?
No. Once
when did they hit that stage? We're
when they realized the adults had opinions, they realized they had their own opinion. So, and I lose. I'm the only male in the house.
Oh no!
So
I'm outvoted.
Yeah, I always lose.
Wow. Okay, so they get to where'd they go to elementary?
They went to several elementaries. They first Ryan went to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went to...
All of these are Hanford schools.
All Hanford schools. They went to Washington.
Yeah.
Then they went to... Actually, they first started at Seamus, then went to Washington. Then they went to Pioneer. Ryan did Pioneer Middle, her 6th grade year. And then 7th grade, she went to Woodrow. And that same year, Zach went to Monroe. And then he did Woodrow.
So did they did go to school together at that point? Because I know high school, they went to
Yes.
separate high schools.
They went to school together all the way up to Ryan's sophomore year. So they were
They were both Hanford High.
Hanford High, her sophomore year, Zachary's freshman year, and then her junior year is when she transferred to Sierra.
And how did they enjoy the high school years? Were they
loved
into
it.
everything?
They were into it as much as possible. Zachary, though, was my homebody, and he just would go to school, do his sports, then come back home.
Okay, yeah. I'm having that right now. Okay, and my kids now are in junior, senior, right?
Mhm.
And they enjoy the sports. They do hang out with friends at school,
Yeah.
but once they come home, it's kind of like, all right, we're home and we do home things.
Mhm.
I'm cool with it, but I can't help but reflect on my own experience. And this is where I kind of fall short as a parent is that I find myself sometimes like, hey, this is what I did.
Right.
You guys, but then I think about, okay, what was I doing? It wasn't anything good. I was
Yeah.
right. Like, I don't know about you, but Jim and I'm pulling Jim in on this one because I know he tells me his stories that, 15, 16, 17, we're up to no good.
Mm.
We're trying to be college kids, if you know what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
The drinking, the running around. And my kids don't do any of that, right? And there's a part of me that sometimes in this weird way, like, wait, are they missing a life experience? Or right? Are they gonna miss something by being the homebody? And then I think about like, no, I'd probably feel better
Right.
knowing they're home and
I'm glad they're not doing what we did when
Yes.
we were 15,
Right.
Yeah.
16. Jeez.
And Jim, he came up with the best idea that this is something, Jim, that I aspire to as well. You know how we saw the arcade and everything upstairs?
Right.
Part of the plan is I want my kids to hang out here
Yeah.
so that, I'm present. And I was like, that's genius. Create something for them.
Right.
So I got the ping pong table. We got the cornhole stuff. Was your house like a hangout spot?
Not really. No.
It was just the kids
it was just
chilling?
kids chilling. Ryan would bring her friends over. They'd have sleepovers, watch Disney movies. That's what would crack me up was they were watching Disney movies.
Oh, in high school? Yeah? Which one? What were they into?
She liked, what was the one? It was with Pegasus. I can't think of
Oh,
it.
yeah. There's Hercules? No,
Hercules, yes.
The
It
Hercules?
was Hercules, yes.
Oh, wow, Jim. I do know a little Disney.
She liked Hercules and
And then you become an audience of your kids' stuff, right?
yes, just watching them, enjoying them.
Yeah.
Of course, I was one that they fed them, big breakfast in the mornings. And
I always thought, okay, so then the girls would, the
girls would stay,
sleepovers.
yeah.
That's awesome. So then Ryan transitions over to SP, Golden Bears. That happened when her junior
year.
Was there any specific thing that was it a program, a sports program? Or she just wanted a different environment?
A different environment. I'll admit she was being bullied, and so she wanted to get out of that
Oh, I see.
situation. So we
Yeah.
transferred her out.
And things, I'm assuming, were better in terms of the bullying
Yes.
stopped.
Things were better.
Did she seem, yeah.
She was happier there, and I think she was more happier there because the way Sierra is spaced out,
Yeah.
she didn't feel that anxiousness of being overcrowded or anything.
Yeah, because we have less of a population.
Less of a population, and just how the buildings were Spaced out. Like Hanford High, they're like building.
Yeah.
And so the hallways would be packed, and she's like, "Mom, wasn't it like that when you were in high school?" I was like, "Actually, no." I go, because when I was in high school for Hanford High, the freshmen and sophomores went to the West Campus,
That's right.
and the juniors and seniors were at the East Campus.
That was before
So
West became its own school.
it became its own school. So that's how it was. We didn't have that big old crowded feeling in the hallways.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but people who don't live in Hanford, they don't call it Hanford East. They call it Hanford High.
It's Hanford High, yes.
Because I'm not from Hanford, right, originally. And so when everyone's like, hey, we're going to have a meeting at the East Campus, I'm like, okay, where's the East Campus? They're like, yeah, East.
East.
And that's
It's
because
Hanford
from
High,
growing
isn't it?
up, right, in that area. So then but Zachary decided to stay.
He stayed, yes.
So he found his.
He found his group. He was fine. He was kind of like me, friends with everybody.
I love that.
And just chilled there, I guess. I mean, he had his friends. He had 2 of his cousins in the same grade. So
Yeah.
he was like, I'll just stay here. I'm fine. I was like,
Okay. And then she, Were they close and like, oh, I want you to be in school with me, or it didn't really?
It didn't really matter because I mean they were at home together.
Yeah, they still saw each
when
other
they
at
would
home.
be with me. They were
So you had a golden bear and a bullpup.
in a bullpup.
Was there any rivalry talk ever? Like we
no.
have bigger programs than you guys do.
No.
Green is ugly, red is the color. Yeah. None of that.
None of that.
That's good. They're close to each other. I'm really
Yeah.
close to my siblings as well. I was a middle child. Jim, it's just you and your brother, right? Mike,
Yeah.
you're close.
We've
Right?
gotten a lot closer as we've gotten older.
Yes, and I think that's part of it too. When you get to high school, you have a lot more.
More
You
in
either have a
common.
lot more in common, or you just
Yeah.
completely branch out. And as far as activities for Zachary, what else was he into?
He was baseball,
Hmm.
and then his junior year is when he first went into football,
Oh, that was okay.
and then so baseball and football by the end.
And then and I know that you had in your statement had shared that he was going to be the kicker.
He was going to be the kicker. Yes,
And that would have been his senior
that his senior year.
year.
That was like kind of the end of COVID period
Got it.
because that year football was in the spring.
That's right. Oh, that's right. So strange. Like
Yeah.
we forget some of this stuff. Do you remember having a spring season of football, Jim?
There's so much of COVID that just
Just blur.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. It becomes a blur.
And it's funny because if you go back, I was thinking about this the other day. You have AD after death. You have BC for biblical terms,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Now you have pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now it's like you go back and you can relate. Like, oh, that brings me back to that
Yes.
little time of history,
and,
I guess.
and certain things permanently stay the same
Yeah.
after COVID. This idea of distance learning. Some kids just like, hey, I'm staying right here with this.
Yeah.
This worked for me. Or even working remotely from home.
Right.
A lot of
Lot of
offices
people
like,
do
why are
that.
we renting an office now? Let's do it from there. Good and bad, you
Yeah.
know. And the whole COVID experience for me, I was like you. I had kids in school.
Mhm.
Jim had kids in school, and so we kind of saw how it played out for them. Some of them thrived, and others didn't.
Yeah.
But it definitely changed how my level of appreciation for some of the very just everyday things in life, like walking
Right.
into a store.
Yes. Walking into
You know,
a store,
All, just little things like that.
going to the movies.
Yes, going to the
I
movies.
missed that so much when
Yeah.
COVID happened. Because I'm one of the last people that finally, okay, I can stream stuff at home. I was like, I'd rather go to the movies and
Yeah,
watch it. But
it's because it's an experience.
yes.
The smell of the popcorn.
Mhm.
I'm a big to this day movie. We do drive-in. You ever do drive-in?
We had the drive-in in Armona.
Yes, King's Driveway.
King's Drive-in.
Drive-in. I went there right before it closed. I saw Pitch Perfect 2.
Oh,
And I was
yes.
like, oh, the signs are there. The snack bar is looking a little like it's struggling. I was like,
Struggling, yeah.
please stay together. So now we drive to Madera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so about 20 minutes down the road there, they have Madera Drive-In. That's still open.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to Madera Drive-In. Come check it out. So I want to talk about signature stories. And what I mean by that is like if someone said to you, hey, who was Ryan really? Or who was Zachary? What would be a story that would kind of summarize?
Stand
I mean,
out.
you can't, not everything, right? But
Not everything. One story that stands out with Ryan was she was at Pioneer Middle with in Mr. Hodson's class, Mr. Doug Hodson.
yeah,
And of course, like you said, everyone in Hanford knows each other.
yes.
He was a year behind me in high school for 93, and I graduated with his wife, Sarah, in 92.
Yeah.
So he had her in the class, and he kind of had a heads up, like who she was and stuff. And then he's like, hey, he goes, do you have an Uncle Juan? And she right away, no, I don't have an Uncle Juan. You sure? She goes, yeah, I don't have an Uncle Juan. Then she thought about it a little bit later. She's like, well, what's his last name? He goes, Galindo. She goes, I don't have an Uncle Juan Galindo. I have an Uncle J.B. Galindo.
So
J.B. is Juan Burton.
Juan Burton.
But she never knew him as Juan.
Yeah.
It's always been Uncle JB.
Yeah.
So he relayed that to me, and I was just like, oh my goodness, Ryan.
Ryan, that's Uncle JB.
It's Uncle JB. But it did. It would take her a minute, like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I just remember that story all the time, and I just laugh. And every time I see them in in public, it just reminds me of that.
Did she ever do the follow up like, JB, they called you Juan?
No, she came home and told me that. She's
Yeah.
like, Uncle JB's name is Juan. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Isn't it strange? Okay, I'll tell you real quick. I don't even know if Jim knows this, but in high school, like the older generation of teachers, whatever, they grew up with certain names. We have certain names that didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert was very typical in the 50s and 60s, 70s to be shortened to Bob,
Yes.
right? By 80s and 90s, it's Rob. R-O-B
Mm-hmm.
is a more popular one. So I had this English teacher, and of course, all my friends were in this class with me. And he said at one time, he's like, "Hey, Bob Esquerdo here today?" Oh my God, they lost it. Because Bob to us is an older white man with golf pants. And, right? That's our picture.
Kind of the picture. For me, though, my
pet pocket protector.
My grandpa's name was Roberto.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so we have Roberto Jr.
Yeah.
But like you said, that time and age, he's Uncle Bob.
Yeah, hey, Bob. And to me, Bob was an older white man was my picture of Bob. So I didn't, but they thought it was hilarious. And so my whole senior year, guess who I was?
You're Bob.
I'm Bob. So then I get to my junior year and transfer into a college out in the Bay Area where no one knows me. Somebody put on my transcripts, Roberto. It's not bad, but it's not my name.
Yeah.
I've never been called that. Well, then the friends catch wind, the new friends, and it's Beto. So I went from Bob to Rob to Beto. And pretty soon it's like, hey, what's up, Beto dog? And when my friends from home would come visit, they're like, who are they talking to? Rob, who are they? Are you Beto? I go, apparently I am here.
Yes.
So you kind of just roll with it.
Right.
Right. So JB Juan, I get it. Do you have a signature Zachary story?
Zachary, well, this would include Ryan in it too, though, but we were driving home one day from dinner, and it was me, my sister Rachel, and in the back was Ryan, Zachary, and my niece Melina.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan had something. She's like, hey, well, where's Nana at? And my sister Rachel goes, weren't you in that conversation earlier before? She goes, we talked about where Nana was at. And she goes, kids, where's Nana? And my Zachary goes, she's at the dance for the Mexicans. I was like, okay.
Is that a quinceañera?
It wasn't a quinceañera. It was
about?
the Mexican American Women's Club.
Oh,
They had their
yeah.
scholarship dance.
I see them on the Facebook. They're still around, right?
They're still
Zachary?
around, yes.
So they have a dance for the Mexicans.
Yeah,
So your kids are Mexican.
Mexican American. Yeah, they're half.
Yeah. And so how is that? Because I always find in families like biracial families or with multiple ethnicities, the kids sometimes will try to embrace both, seem to gravitate close to one or the other. In your kids' case, did they seem to embrace both cultures, or were they more on the Caucasian side?
I think they were more on the Caucasian side, just because of where we lived, and then most of our families down in LA, so we didn't do a lot of
like Uncle JB and all
Uncle.
them.
Well, Uncle JB was here in Hanford. Or
Okay.
actually, he was in Corcoran. He lived with my dad and my stepmom in Corcoran. But we really didn't do a lot of the Mexican stuff. Like we didn't have quinces. Ryan kind of like.
Did you do like a Sweet 16?
We didn't do. She had tried to plan to do Sweet 16 with her and her best friend Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Because they happened to be born on the same day.
Yeah.
In the same hospital.
Was
It
Aaliyah
crazy.
was Aaliyah at Hanford High, or where was she?
She
at?
started out at Hanford High her freshman year. Then she went to Hanford West.
Okay. So her best friend was at West. Her brother's at East. And she's at SP.
She's at SP.
All right. That's good. There's a lot of variety there.
And I think that the sports is what helped too. She had friends at every campus, and then even friends when she started doing club softball. She had friends here in Fresno, Madera.
What club did
Clovis.
she play for?
She
Travel
played
ball.
for Clovis Rockets and Crush.
Clovis Rockets. Yeah, I still see them around.
And then Crush.
And Crush. So when I met Ryan, my immediate association to her was softball. She was our ace pitcher, if I'm not mistaken.
She was one of them. Yeah.
And sometimes she would wear the outfits and the jerseys.
Yeah.
And so I kind of associated her with softball at the time. And then it made sense when they told me, oh no, her mom helps run the softball league and all that. So Ryan and Zachary were there for COVID.
Yes.
Like my kids. How did you guys manage that? Was it a good time, a bad time? Did they miss the interaction? Because you said
Ryan-
Zachary was a homebody.
Zachary's a homebody, so he was okay with not dealing with the friends because he played. Which one did he? He didn't have the PlayStation. He had the other one,
Oh, okay. The PC,
Xbox.
Xbox.
So he would communicate with his friends
Yeah,
on the
ga-
Xbox.
gaming is
on
the new
gaming.
hangout.
So that's what it was.
Yeah.
So he was fine with it. Ryan, she missed being out there. She missed the interaction with her friends and stuff. And she's like, when can we go back, Mom? I was like, I don't know. It just depends. So that's when like a lot of the sleepovers would happen. And
Okay, good. I'm glad she had that. I know because I was there that when she graduated, it was a drive-by.
it was a drive-by. We walked
Did you
through.
guys have that? So strange, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, because here's the deal. We're doing the best we can.
Mhm.
We're figuring out, but inside you're like, man, this is not.
This is how
And you had
it's
to,
supposed
you had
be.
to, yeah, and you have to kind of get past that
Mhm.
when something happens. This is not the way it's supposed to be, because if you stay too long in that, you miss what is happening.
Yes.
And so I learned a lot during that time, Estella, about how to manage that which happened, which I didn't want to happen, and how to accept the new reality,
Yeah.
because you'll miss things along the way. Because when something's missing, for me, I tend to write off other things that still exist. I watched I watched a lot of movies as a kid. I don't know. I felt like the Cable Guy. Remember that? You ever watch Cable Guy?
Uh-huh.
Michelle, you seen that one? And he lived in front of the TV. So all my references are television movie. I
Right.
vicariously I live through them. And I remember watching Stand By Me. You guys ever see Stand By Me?
Yes.
So the older brother passes away,
Right.
and he was the popular John Cusack played the kid, and he was a starting quarterback. He passes away, and the little brother was like, I was the invisible kid.
Mhm.
I was invisible because my parents were grieving the loss of my older brother. And so with that grieving and that desire to live in that past where Danny was still alive, they were missing my childhood.
Yes.
I was growing up. I was doing things and they missed it. And so for me, that movie was teaching me about how not to miss things because the things you wanted aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess we all have our ways, right? And so to me, you're an example of how we manage loss,
Mhm.
right? And so for viewers who do not know, Stella lost both Ryan and Zachary in 2021.
Yes.
I believe it was March
March 22nd.
22nd, 2021. You say in your witness statement that you allowed me to read. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was very insightful and heartfelt. You shared that was the day that your world changed forever.
Yes.
And I know for me, I knew Ryan, and losing her, as a teacher, like maybe not to the degree as a parent, but they're all your kids.
Yes.
I always see it that way. They're all my kids. And, when you lose one, it hurts. But when you're the parent, it's a whole nother level
Mhm.
of loss. And just to recap for you, you were at work and you found that both your kids had passed. You drove to your mom's, and the chief called, right?
I was at work and my sister we had been emailing each other because she works at the prison in Kalinga. So we were emailing each other and she said, hey, we had just ordered shirts for football
Okay.
since they were doing football in the spring that year. So we just ordered shirts for football and our friend had posted, oh, they're ready. And she goes, hey, your shirts are ready. And then she's like, hey, something's going on in your neighborhood. And I was like, okay. She goes, you need to call the kids. So of course I was trying to call them, but of course being basic teenagers at that time, they were sleeping most of the time. And she said, hey, she said so-and-so, and I can't remember her name. She was one of my neighbors. She was she's saying the activities at your house, you need to go. So I did. I'd actually been planning to leave early that day anyways because we were going to do COVID test for Zachary because they had
You're
to do the
driving from
test.
Corcoran back
I was
home.
driving back to Corcoran from home. So I just left the prison. And as I was turning on the 43, that's when Hanford police had called and said, hey, don't rush. Whatever's going to happen, it's not going to change anything. And I was like, okay, I'll call you when I get to my dad's, because my dad lives at the, not quite the halfway point, but if you guys are familiar with 43, there's a cell tower
Yes.
right before you get to Corcoran.
Oh, I
So
thought you were talking about the water tower.
no, the cell tower.
Okay.
So right before you get to Corcoran, there's a cell tower, and my dad lives there because that's where my stepsister has land, so she lives there.
Okay.
So I was able to see if my dad's truck was at his mobile home, but it wasn't. So I knew if he wasn't there, he was probably at her house doing something, and luckily enough, he was there. So I stopped there, and that's when we called them back, and that's when they had told us that they were gone. So I was like, okay. And then from there, my dad and stepsister got me to my mom's house in Hanford.
Yeah. To me, the thing I was most concerned about when I heard this, is I don't remember where I heard this. I even repeated it to Jim when he lost his mother recently. It was like, we mourn those who have passed, but as a support system, as friends, our job now is to nurture and help the living.
Right.
Because it's those that are left behind that, are now the focus. And that's so foreign because
Right.
the focus should be those who've passed.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've now, as I've gotten older, I've realized, okay, if somebody has passed and laid to rest, they no longer need us. And I'm a spiritual man, right?
Right.
So they're in a better place. But Estella's here, and she's trying to navigate this world without her children now.
Right.
Who is there for her? And when I was reading your personal statement, it seemed like you had an amazing team of people
I did.
who came in. And to me, that's the beauty of this world, is that when you have such tragedy and the world seems like such a dark place to be, that light is generated by the people among us. Like it almost brings the light out.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to assume on this side, but it's like, okay, Estella knew she had friends, but she didn't know how real those friends were
Until that
day. And I just remember reading account after account of all these people stepping up and saying, okay, she just lost the most precious people in her life, both in the same day. I need to step up. And it seemed like they did.
They did. It was immediate. I mean, as soon as we got to my house, I text or called family that I could think of, because it was a 15-minute drive, to meet me at my mom's house. What was crazy, and I didn't find this out till afterwards, my niece Jillian had just started as being a dispatcher at Hanford PD. So she was there when the call came in. So she was one of the first to know once her supervisors
And then
found out the
this
connection.
incident was called in by the perpetrator?
Yes, it was. It was called in by him. And so she heard the name, and then she stopped what she was doing because she was still in training. And she's like, those are my cousins. So they immediately, okay, you need to go home. So she went home, told her parents, and my sister-in-law was like, that was the longest, I want to say maybe hour for her until she knew that I knew.
Yeah.
Because they knew before me. So, but the support was immediate. As soon as we got to my mom's house, there's family was there. I had to let my mom know what had happened. We drove to my house, but of course they wouldn't let me in. So I sat in my neighbor's truck in his tailgate.
Because now your home is a crime scene where they're
Crime scene.
investigating, and they.
Yeah,
And
so they
so-
had that whole street. They had the
Yeah.
cul-de-sac taped off, and I was just like,
So
okay.
you can't even go into your own home.
Couldn't even go into my own home.
I remember you
No.
saying in your statement that you didn't want to leave that area because your children were in
They
that
were there.
home, and you wanted to make sure that you wouldn't leave until they did.
Until they did. So friends came, the softball board. They were few of the first people there. One of them brought one of those pop-up tents because it was a warm day for March. that day. My dad was there. He went and got
Is this
food
all
for
front
us.
yard or where?
This was in the driveway right next door
so they
to
would
my house.
Okay, so they wouldn't let you.
They wouldn't
anywhere?
even let me pass my neighbor's driveway.
Yeah.
My dad made sure we had food and water. A couple other softball board members had come and they brought me a phone charger. My best friend Jen, she was there. And what was weird was like I didn't know how they knew. It didn't even dawn on me. Social media.
Yeah.
I know. I think even my sister had mentioned. We had a meeting with the DA. She goes, I had seen something that it said Orange Court. She goes, but she goes, I didn't put two and two together. She goes, because actually, she goes, my mom and I, we live on Orange. See, I lived on Orange Street. They lived on Orange Court.
Yeah.
Orange runs like almost the whole city of Hanford. So from just past Fargo, going from past Fargo all the way to not Fargo, 10th Avenue all the way to where we were. I think my street was the end of Orange. So it was a good 2 miles long. So she was, I didn't even put two and two together. She goes, we live on Orange Court. You lived on Orange Street. She goes, didn't even dawn on me that
Yeah.
it was your house. She goes, and it wasn't until my friend had said, it's your sister's house.
Well, I think part of that is a very human thing where we see things happen around us.
Mm-hmm.
We never imagine that it would be something that we would experience. Right. And so I'm assuming that the first emotion besides the obvious pain was shock. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now, they have the stages of grief. Do you feel like you went through them, and where are you currently at?
I've never really sat down to look through the stages of grief. I mean,
so there's shock,
disbelief. Definitely shock.
There's kind of a disbelief, denial, right? Then you have, I think acceptance comes later. There's anger, right? Do you feel like those were a lot of the emotions
I
you
had
went through?
Shock and disbelief. I think a short period of anger.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to say acceptance, but that's pretty much what it is. And I think I've been able to maneuver it through all of this because of therapy.
So the mental health therapy that you've been getting, is that fairly regular? Like
I go once a month.
Once a month. Mm-hmm. And did that start immediately after, or?
It started about a month after.
The first initial month, I believe, was a lot of logistics as well.
It was
right?
a lot of stuff. I mean, just trying to get services planned, making sure family from out of town were coming in.
Yeah.
My in-laws from back east, they flew in, I think, that night. And then my brother, JB, he lives in Texas now.
Oh, okay.
So he had to drive in, just making sure that people were there.
Yeah.
My in-laws had to go back east, so they weren't there for the services, but they were there to just comfort us. And
I remember you saying that you had a friend who lived in Chino.
my cousin Eric.
Eric, and that Eric drove immediately down, and it wasn't until Eric came that you really felt it all and just kind of released.
Yeah,
is that accurate?
I think I was more like, this is real. This is, because I was just, like I said, I was in shock that whole time.
Yeah.
Sitting there still expecting a phone call or a text.
Yeah, you said you
them.
were checking your phone
I was checking
and
my
waiting
phone,
for
waiting
the
for them to
text.
call. Yeah.
Like this could be a mistake. This could be, yeah. So
that was just my mind. I mean, thinking, because I did see them. I didn't see them get put into the van, but I saw the van drive off. And that's when we left.
And that was day one.
Day one.
Of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
As you put it. And for me, when I really, because I already had a tremendous amount of love for you. But let me tell you what really just showed me who you are. And maybe Michelle could even attest to witnessing some of this. But in your statement, you started talking about how you were worried and looking out for other people at the most painful time of your life, when it should have just been about you and your healing, because the nature of who you are You were worried about your nieces.
Mm-hmm.
You were worried about how the other family was going to take it.
Right.
Being the mother of these children. Because to me, you know, from the outside looking in, I'm like, okay, Estella's priority number one in terms of managing all this. And yet, in her selflessness, she's looking to make sure everybody else is okay.
Yeah, because I wasn't the only one that lost them. Their friends lost them.
Yeah.
Their teachers lost them. Their coaches lost them. I even think I had texted Zachary's coaches soon after. I was like, this is what happened. I'll give you details later. Both of them responded, we know, we already know, we're taking care of it. And of course, anything you need. I was like, okay. Ryan's softball coach, Victor, him and his wife, we've been involved with the softball youth board for a long time. They showed up to make sure I was okay if anything I needed, so they were there. Zachary's JV coach, him and a couple of the other coaches showed up with the football team because they had said, when we told the boys what had happened, which I'm sure the boys had known already through social media and stuff.
And you were like helping the boys through this.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that the boys were all shocked because you're like, you knew their names.
I knew their names.
And they were like, you remember me? And
there was one boy, Johnny,
mm-hmm.
we had met originally through his sister because his sister Kristen played softball with Ryan.
Yeah.
And when he came because when we first met Johnny was 3.
Yeah.
Here he is. I can't remember if he was a freshman or sophomore that year. I gave him a hug. I go, hey, Johnny, how you doing? He's like, I'm good, Miss Hulbert.
See what I'm saying? You're asking how Johnny's doing.
Tell your mom and dad I said hi. And he went home and told his mom, Teresa, Mom, she remembers me. But that's how it was being involved with all the sports team and stuff. I was, in quotes, the team mom. Like,
Yeah.
I knew each kid. I knew their parents. Most of the time, parents and I had gone to school together. So
Wow.
yeah,
So then the healing begins.
the healing begins.
The questions begin for you too. I know in your statement you had said, I have so many questions about why.
Mm-hmm.
And I think why is a very reasonable and common response when
Right.
things happen. Why us? Why me? Have you had any peace with that yet in terms of identifying, getting any answer or just?
The only piece would be, I can understand he was upset with the breakup. I get that part.
So this was a domestic violence.
It was a domestic, but it was just like out of the blue domestic violence, in my opinion.
There wasn't like a.
There was no signs. I didn't see any signs. I'm not sure if Ryan was going to tell me what was going on.
Yeah, because you did say that the night before the
before.
incident,
I had just gotten back from LA.
and she said, "I'll talk to you tomorrow
Yeah,
about what was happening with the relationship."
right.
And that conversation obviously never
Never happened.
transpired.
Mm-mm.
And so here's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, right? We hear about this tragedy where your son and daughter's lives were senselessly taken from them. But now you're left with the litigation, the legal side.
Yeah.
You're still going to court. Were you having to testify or?
We are done with court. That ended July 24th, and I was subpoenaed to testify. So that was, I think, was the most stressful part for me, was that I wasn't going to be able to be in the courtroom to hear everything because I was being subpoenaed as a witness.
Oh, I see. So if as a witness you don't.
I couldn't be in.
Oh, okay.
And for most times they would be like, okay, you'd come in and do your testimony, and then they dismiss you. The DA that was doing the case, she was like, Stella, she goes, I'm so sorry. She goes, but I can't, in my good mind and in my training, I can't dismiss you. She goes, so you may come in several times to testify. She goes, the reason being is that you would be the only one that can rebut something his attorney, or he says.
Yeah.
So I think that was the most stressful part.
My impression was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he was taking responsibility
He in
For this.
April.
for his actions.
Yeah, in April he pled guilty to the highest punishment, but because we had an out of county judge, we had to go by her schedule. So normally sentencing would have been maybe a month after that, but we had to
Yeah.
wait until the end of July because of her schedule, because she is a retired judge, I believe, out of Santa Clara County. So she goes to different counties.
So final sentencing happened this
July.
summer.
It happened July 24th.
Did you feel any sense of closure in that chapter of the justice side of it? Or
On the
did-
justice side, yes, I felt the closure.
closure? He got life.
He got life without parole, 2 consecutive terms.
Yes. Which then the other side that you also expressed is that doesn't bring my children back.
Doesn't bring them back.
So that's something that is, I'm sure, a daily
Mhm.
conversation you have with yourself. And do you have any support on the spiritual side? Or do you go to church? Do you have a
I
group
don't go to
or-
church very often.
Mhm.
I mean, I do believe in God, and I have that spirituality
Yeah.
in me because that was instilled by my grandparents and my mom and my
Yeah.
dad. Just as a kid growing up, I just saw a lot of do as we say, don't do as we act, something like
Yes,
that. And I
yeah.
see that in a lot of churches, which I was
Unfortunately, yeah.
not comfortable with. So I mean, I had a discussion with my mom. I said, "Look, Mom, you guys raised me right. I believe in Him. I know that there's afterlife and stuff, but
Yeah.
I can't be around people that are not following what they're saying." And she's like, "Okay, so I have that. I go to therapy. I haven't quite found, I don't want to say courage, maybe more the strength to
Oh no, you've got courage. Well, that will never
yeah.
be.
To join a group to talk about
Yeah.
what happened." So
Yes. And this is only on my
mhm.
little tiny losses that I've ever had. It's hard for me to talk about things that I've lost with people who haven't.
Mhm.
But I think there's some power in being in a room with people who have similar losses, because finally I'm in a room with people who can say, "Hey, well, I do know what you're talking about
Mhm.
because I was in your shoes."
Yes.
Do you feel like you found a group like that at all?
Um,
Anyone who's like lost children or
yes, there's a couple. The year after Ryan and Zachary, there was Marissa Cardona.
that was a
and
car accident.
That was a car
for
accident.
Softball player
so,
from Hanford West.
Yes, and my niece Alyssa happened to be playing Hanford West softball at that time too, and I had been going to equine therapy.
Yeah, the horses.
The
right?
horses,
Horse
mhm.
therapy.
I was
What's the
going
name of the organization? I know we have one near Lemoore.
It's the one in Lemoore. And oh
Yes.
my goodness, I'm sorry, Denise.
We love
I
you
can't-
guys.
I love
Denise,
you,
we
Denise.
love
I
you.
love you, but I can't think of the name of her.
What's it
group.
called? Circle T?
Circle T, yes.
Circle T Ranch. Ah, we didn't forget
Thanks,
you
Michelle.
guys. We didn't forget you. Michelle
Yes.
with the save.
Michelle with the save, because I had.
Can we get a
introduced her
horn
to
for
that.
Michelle? Yeah, thank you.
I was going through that, and they got the Victim Services County group
Mhm.
got her to bring the horses to Hanford West.
Oh my God.
So I was there that day and helped out. I met her dad at one of the vigils.
Yeah.
I haven't met her mom yet because at that time her mom was in the hospital for a while, but I'd met her dad. And the one question I remember him asking me was like, "Will this pain ever go away?" And I said, "No, it's just one day at a time." And he was like, "Okay." And then the year after that, in 22, we had that drive-by where the Hanford High student, Drake,
Yes. Drake.
was.
A lot of my
taking care of-
son's friends knew
Right.
him from baseball.
I went to the vigil for him at the Babe Ruth field, and I met with his mom.
Yeah.
And this is how close Hanford is. His mom happened to be a niece of one of my friends that I grew up with. Like, we were neighbors when we were growing up, and it was her husband's has a husband's niece, so her niece in particular. So we were talking, and so I text her every once in a while. Text my friend to see how their niece is doing.
Oh, wow.
I did get to meet with her, and I talked with her, and
Yeah.
same thing was like
One day at a
one
time.
day at a time.
And I think that's a really good approach, I think, for a lot of things in life, but definitely loss, because it almost feels intolerable when you think, okay, I'm going to have to go the rest of my life like this. That's a huge daunting, as opposed to say, hey, let me get through today.
Yeah.
Let me find the strength for today. Do you feel like that's the approach that you take that works best for you?
Yes.
And so for me, my hope is that we have individuals who get a chance to watch this episode who are going through a loss. So what can we learn from Estella in terms of how do we address losses in a way that allows us to still function, that is, somewhat healthy. And it seems to me that the way it works for you is that you're just looking at the next 24 hours.
And look at the next 24 hours. And as I always tell my therapist, I never want to go through that black hole. It's just this big black hole that I don't want to ever touch or go through.
That was right after?
That was right after.
And how long did that last, the black hole stage?
I still have it sometimes. It's not as big anymore as it was. But I told her the main reason I did not want to do that and just stay at home in a ball was because I needed to honor Ryan and Zachary's memories.
Yes.
The way we lived.
Amen.
We just lived for the day. I mean, we did everything. We laughed. We were happy. I mean, we weren't perfect, but we were us. We just did things, and I was like, I couldn't insult their memory by just sitting at home and balled up in a curled up in a ball or anything like that. So
that's the strength we're talking about right there. And to me,
that's from them.
That's why you're an inspiration to me and a lot of people. They say in life that the only comparison that really matters is with yourself. Yes. But I think that for me personally, sometimes I'll make these healthy wake-up call comparisons, right? Where, for example, I'm struggling with something that I feel is this big. And then I look outside myself and at the world and I say, okay, well, there's another person who's had a bigger struggle. And if they're making it, that takes all my excuses away.
Right.
And in that sense, it's the inspiration. And so when I look at your strength and courage and your ability to talk about it, and even on social media, I'll see you post things about your kids, and please, can you guys recognize them?
Yeah.
Is there a feeling sometimes that you want to make sure that the world doesn't forget that they existed?
There is a feeling, yes. I don't want them to forget that they existed. I don't want them to forget that they were who they were. They were just two kids on just getting started out. Zachary should have graduated. We didn't get to see him graduate.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll go back and I'll look at the interviews. Like I would go back and look at the interviews from his baseball teammates. They were like, he was just full of energy. He was so positive. Just hearing them say that, I was like, that was my Zach.
Yeah. No, I feel that too sometimes.
I was like, okay.
You hear things about your kids, you're like, I didn't see that side all the time.
I didn't see that side all the time.
But your mom.
I'm a mom,
dad.
yeah. When his coach Dalton would say, there's a couple times.
So Dalton Silva was
his baseball coach
okay.
that year. And we've known Dalton for a while because when I first started with the softball board, his mom was part of that, Peggy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Dalton, I think, was
to me,
away
he's
at college.
Mr. Baseball.
Yes.
we
love
all
Dalton.
things baseball.
So Dalton had mentioned in his interview, he's like, oh, yeah, after football practice, he'd come, he'd help out. And I'm like going, okay, where was that energy at home? Why wouldn't he do that at home? Take the trash out. Come on.
We got dishes, Zach. Right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You need to mow the lawn. And he was like,
yeah, you know what it is too? Is I think a lot of it's perception too. Like this feels fun and communal.
Yeah.
The dishes are by myself and there's nobody, the friends aren't around.
Yeah. So, and then going back to the story was Zachary, he played soccer, and when he was younger and stuff, he was the goalie and he loved being the goalie. But then he's like, wait a minute, I'm just standing here.
I want to get in the
need
mix.
to get in the mix. So he went out and he was one of the defenders, and I think it was his 8th grade year at Woodrow. He was playing soccer, and they were just getting their butts kicked. And his coach was like, I don't have a goalie. I'm just sticking people in there. And finally, Zachary raised his hand. He goes, I'm a goalie.
Just resigned.
He was okay. He's all, I'll do it. And he would step up and do stuff like that. So
that's a real teammate, right? That's a team move right there.
That's a team move right there. I mean, they weren't very good, but they weren't getting their butts totally kicked all the time because he was in there. He was blocking. I remember one game he had blocked 2 penalty kicks, and after that game,
2 penalty kicks
he blocked.
Wow.
And
one is big deal.
One is a big deal, but he blocked the 2. One of the teammates from, I think it was La Jolla, came up to him and shook his hand and said, hey, you did a good job. And even the referee goes, hey, that's pretty cool. So he was excited about that. So then when football, where he was supposed to be the kicker, Cannon was just like, I think they had lost their kicker. I think he got injured or something. So again,
the head coach is it the current head coach?
Cannon Sanchez. So I guess Zachary again raised his hand. He's like, hey, I used to be a goalie. I think I can kick it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he was kicking it. And
so we found a kicker.
So one of the days that they had decided to do that was, again, COVID, where baseball was going on and football was going on. Well, I was part of the board for the baseball team, so I was doing helping with the fundraiser, so I was collecting money. So like, okay, I'll just wait here. Zachary's going to come out of football practice soon. I think I sat there for like 30, 40 minutes, and I'm like going, the parking lot was getting cleared out, and I was like, where's my kid at? So I was calling home, and I think Ryan had her phone off, so I finally went home, and I was like, you haven't heard from Zach? She's like, no, I haven't heard from him. I think I text one of the coaches, hey, is football practice over? And he's like, yeah, football practice has been over for a while. I was like, well, I'm trying to find Zachary. I can't find him. Funny thing was, he knew where Zachary was at, but he didn't know how I would feel that he was going to be a kicker because.
Oh, so he was practicing.
So he was practicing, but I didn't know that.
That was the big secret?
The secret was the coach wasn't sure like how I was going to feel about that because it would put him, I don't want to say danger, but more susceptible, I guess, to being tackled or as a kicker.
Oh, I think it's the safest position.
I don't know. So I was just like, okay.
It's a high pressure, high profile.
Maybe
because you don't remember the kicker until he misses.
Right.
After you get the extra point. Oh, he's good.
So he didn't tell me. He's like,
it's a thankless job. That's for sure.
He was like, no, practice is over. I was like, okay. So then I think after I'd gotten off the phone with him or after texting him or whatever, Zachary finally called. Hey, Mom, I'm ready to get picked up. I was like, where have you been? I've been looking for you. He's like, oh, I was with Coach Cannon practicing. I was like, okay. And that's when I found out that he was going to be the kicker. Cannon came out. He's like, I found my kicker. And I was just like, okay.
See, these are good secrets.
They're good secrets. Yeah. But I was just like, little heads up next time. Cause I'm sitting here waiting.
Yeah, like, where'd you go, kid?
I could have been home making dinner or something, but, just all this stuff that was coming up. Like, Zach would do this and Zach would do that. And I'm going, okay, doesn't sound like my Zachary because, like I said, he was a homebody.
Yeah.
I would try and encourage him. Hey, why don't you go out with your friends? No, I'm good. He didn't go to the formals or the prom. I was like, why don't you go? And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm saving you money. Okay.
Yeah. And you know what I've found is that sometimes something's just not their thing.
Yeah.
You know, even though it was for us. Mm-hmm. Or we may think, oh, that'd be a great thing for you.
Yeah. I was like, look, your friends are going, no, they're fine. I'm good.
They're good. I just, my fear with my kids, and probably had the same thing, is that they're not going for a reason other than they don't enjoy it. Mm. So if you don't enjoy something and you pass it up, I'm good with that. But if you're not going because you don't think someone will say yes to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I never wanted those obstacles to exist for them. But sometimes I just have to find peace, and it's just not their thing.
Yeah. That's what I did. I was like, okay,
It just
fine.
wasn't his thing.
So yeah, he was my dinner date. We go to the movies, but
I love that.
most of the time he was on his Xbox.
But you sound like a good teammate.
He was
He's
a
a good
very
teammate. And you know, when you talk about coaching, Jim's a tennis coach now.
Mhm.
I was a coach for 20 something years. You named the sport, right? The youth coach stuff, the whole thing. And I think coaches sometimes get lost in, I need the best players possible.
Mhm.
And as you get older, you start to realize, no, I want to create good teammates, because good teammates become good people.
Yeah.
Because a good teammate is selfless, puts the team before others. All the things you want from
Mhm.
a partner,
Right.
all the things you want from a good friend. You know, and so to me, with my 20 plus years, not that I'm any expert, it sounds like you had a good teammate there, is what you had.
Mhm. He
Getting
was.
moving on to Ryan and her athletic career. She was softball since what age? At what age she started playing?
4 or 5.
Wow, just young.
Yeah, and it was the under 6 and unders is when she started. So I was like,
Okay, so when did she go, Mom? Can I have the most high profile, thankless, high pressure position on the field? Can I have that, please? Because my kids
that
like,
was funny. That was funny.
the pitcher
The
thing.
pitcher
Oh my
thing.
God!
She.
I have a special place in my heart for pitchers,
Mhm.
because they're on that mound all alone.
It was probably her under 8 years. No, I think it was right away.
Did she come to you about it, or was that your idea?
No, what happened was she was just messing around, and her uncle noticed. He's like, "Hey, she's got."
JB?
No, her uncle Noel,
No.
her cousin Jillian's dad, because
Okay.
they were pretty much on the same team all the way up until they couldn't be on the same team anymore. So they were on the same team. He's like, "Hey, she's actually making it to the
The
plate."
plate.
But she wasn't out there. She wasn't the original pitchers. It was 2 other girls that were pitchers. And then what had happened was they were not only just in softball, they were in dance. And so they had a dance recital or dance practice or something one game. And
Yeah.
the coach was like, "Oh man, who am I going to put in to pitch?" And my brother-in-law goes, "Put Ryan in." And Ryan's just like, "Okay,
See, I like that.
whatever."
I like the little kids. The little kids are like, okay.
Okay.
Hey,
go do it."
you need me to color? Yeah. I need you
Yeah.
to sing and dance. All right. And then as
So-
they get older, right, that's when we start to plant things in their head
Yeah.
and say, I don't know if that's for you. The hesitation. So I love this. And so she just stepped up.
She just stepped up and did it, and then from then she was just pitching. And I didn't push her like I didn't like some people would take them to pitching lessons. I didn't push her to do that. I would wait. I was waiting for her to say I want to exceed more. But as she grew older and she grew into her height and stuff, she was just still pitching them in. So she would learn the pitches. We would watch YouTube and stuff, and she would learn the pitches. I think it was her first time she was in travel ball,
Yeah.
so it'd be under 14. She finally was able to do the change up, and I think I have a video somewhere, and she's like, "Oh, I did it!" And the coach was like, "Yeah, you did." So, but she would never go through the extensive pitching training that other people do. So I think she would have went farther, but she was like, "Nope, they were just there to have fun and
Yes.
play. They weren't like she
Yes.
already knew from the start, I'm not going to do this in college. I'm just going to play." My main thing was you guys have to be involved in something.
Oh, yeah.
So
Because it's that
that's what I
idle
did.
time where
Mhm.
we find other things that may not
Yeah.
be so good.
That was my only request. Like you have to be involved in something, playing something. I don't care if you're going to play in college or whatever, but she knew right from the beginning. She's like, "I'm not going to do this in college. I'm going to be tired anyways." But
Stay busy.
yeah, you just stay busy and do that.
Wow. And during her senior year,
COVID.
COVID hits.
Mhm.
Did you think it was going to be that long when she
I
came
did.
home that day and Zach came
No.
home? I can tell you the date. March 13th. It was Friday the 13th,
Mhm.
2020.
They had did they have the tournament that weekend? I think it was the last tournament they had, and it was in Reedley. And what was funny was, and I still to this day don't know if we had COVID or not, if it was the flu. I think it was a flu because I think Zachary tested positive for flu. He went down first, And so he was at home. Ryan had a tournament at Reedley. I think I went to the game on Friday. Saturday is when it hit me. I told her, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to get you to the bus, whatever. She's like, well, can you at least come and pick me up? I don't want to ride the bus home. So I did that, but I stayed in the parking lot. And what ended up happening, they ended up winning the game. They were losing to begin with, and they ended up winning that game. So then they'd play another game. So I sat in the parking lot for a game and a half waiting for it to come out. And I'm like, I don't feel good. So on the way home, I ended up having her drop me off at the walk-in clinic. I'll call you when I'm ready. She's like, okay.
That was the COVID weekend?
That was the COVID weekend. And
so you can admit willingly as a parent that there are times that you privately wish that they lose a tournament game.
Yes.
Come on, can we go?
Yes, I need to go home.
And then that's when they pull it off. Huh?
Yeah.
Mom, we came back. Oh,
Michelle can
great.
attest to that too.
Oh, we're so happy for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
We're here for 2 more hours.
Yeah. So I was just like, so she drove me to the clinic and I told them that my son had tested for positive for flu. They're like, okay, you probably have it too. Sent me home with meds. Ryan got hit the next day with flu and strep throat.
Oh.
So, I mean, I don't know if they're just saying that. I don't know if we had COVID. I'm saying no, we didn't have COVID because they didn't know what it was back then. Just, there was
so much we didn't know.
So much we didn't know. So we were out. We were down for like a week, I think.
So for me, it was a little bit of a scary time when it first happened. Were you a little...
I was a little
family?
I was a little freaked out. I was like, why are people buying toilet paper? I was just like, I'd go to the store. Where's the toilet paper?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing I don't want to ever run out of. So I do have I have a pack I'm going through, and I do have an extra pack.
I was all about the Clorox wipes at the time.
That too. I was like, where's the Clorox? Where's the toilet paper? It's like, it was crazy. Like, I think I went to Save Mart one time, and my sister was looking for toilet paper. I was like, hey, they got toilet paper. You better get here now.
And you know that time, I think, is where we all universally, whether it be me, you, right, Michelle or Jim, we all had that moment where we're like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
And then you go to sleep and you wake up the next day and you're like, yep, it's happening.
It's happening.
I'm really at home.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was rough for me. I think we did telework a little bit, and I did not like it. I did not like it at all. I was like, I was like, Ryan, I needed to be somewhere where there's people to talk to. I'd be at work. I'd be teleworking from home, and Zachary had just gotten his cat, and his cat would just plop himself on my keyboard. And I'm like, I'm trying to work, dude. But I needed, or I'd get distracted, like, oh, I can do a load of laundry. I can do this. But I was just like, no, I need to be at work.
Yeah. And so here's the other thing that, now that you mentioned the pets, even in your personal statement, you found silver linings. Mm-hmm. And one of them that you told and shared in there was that when the incident happened and the police had shut down your home and it was a crime scene, after the crime scene and everything had been clean and cleared up, the pets were missing. Mm-hmm. The cat was it 2 cats?
2 cats.
2 cats were missing. And was it a day or 2 later you guys found them?
It was the next day.
The next day. Where were they again?
Jack, which is Zachary's cat, was hiding in the recliner.
Oh, okay.
And then Gizmo, Ryan's cat, was hiding in one of the clothes hampers in my room.
So are they still around?
They're still around.
Pets are therapy, right?
They are.
They're therapeutic.
That pet family has kind of grown a little too.
Oh.
So when I told the detective, I said, there's 2 cats. And he was like, I'm sorry. We don't see them.
Yeah.
He goes, they may have ran out as soon as we got there and let the door open. But then I think a little bit later, he goes, either it's the hair from the cats that's still around, or they are in there because they had one of their officers ended up having to do one of the epinephrine shot because he was having an allergic reaction.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, okay. So the next day when we went, my cousin went in first. And as he was walking in, he said that Jack was climbing out of the recliner. I was like, okay. Yeah. And then when I went in and stuff, my stepsister Shawnee had gone a little bit further and they were in my room and they're like, oh, here's Gizmo. And so I was like, okay, they hid. So that put me a little at ease. Like, okay, I still have pieces of Ryan and Zachary that are around me. And So that was comforting.
So I'm imagining there's a lot of daily reminders
Mm-hmm.
that keep you smiling.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you have present that you go, okay, they existed, they were here, they were a part of my life?
Well, of course, I have all the pictures.
Yeah.
All the pictures. There are all their sweatshirts. We were a sweatshirt family, so I'll put on their sweatshirts and stuff that they're still around me. I have these necklaces that friends and family have given me. One of them has a matching bracelet where it's pictures of them.
Oh, okay.
I have an engraved bracelet with their name on it. I have a ring that I forgot to wear, but it has their name that their friend, Zachary's friend Justin, brought me. It has their names Ryan and Zach on it. Just things like that keep me around. So one of these has their presents. My friend Amy got me this one, and it's their fingerprints.
Oh, wow.
So just things like that.
That is very cool. So for somebody who's at home right now and they're going through a very difficult time, what insight do you think you could share with them that you were able to, gain from your experience that would help them get through just the next 24 hours?
To just remember them. Don't think that not remembering them is going to make it better. Always keep them in your heart and in your mind, and just one day at a time. You're going to have your breakdowns. I still have my breakdowns.
Yeah.
And to keep your support close to you, which has been so helpful.
It seems like you have a great support system. You're blessed with that.
Yes.
But, people ask me about that. They say, hey, how can I feel more supported and have more people around me? And I even tell the high schoolers at school and say, like, if you want friends, one of the things that you can do is be a friend first.
Yes.
Don't wait for people to come to you and do things for you. Mm-hmm. Be a giver. And that support system will gravitate towards you.
Yeah.
Because they see what you are doing for others.
Yeah, and that's what was one of the things that kind of surprised and shocked me, the community. Even though I knew the community Hanford has been helpful in other issues too. Like I've seen them just join together and help others. I never knew what it was why they came and helped me. And my sister's like, so Stella, you're involved with the soccer league at one point, and you coached the kids' teams a couple times. You've been involved with softball this whole time.
You've been giving.
You've been giving your time this whole time that people remember. They
do.
One of my friends had mentioned that she was talking with a customer, and she's who we all saw at their games, at their practices. She was the one we saw. She was the face behind Ryan and Zachary. So
I read that on social media, Facebook.
So
they were talking
about
like, you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, right? When you see it from another lens, other people sharing and talking about you. But I knew it because I was reading about it, and to me, I know there's some things about social media that are not great. Yeah. But one of the really great things is you sometimes get a really good sense of who someone is from some of the things that are shared. Mm-hmm. Very honest things from other people, and I was convinced that you were a woman of courage, strength, and community. That you were all about community. Yeah. And so I was so happy to see everyone rally around you. I said, yeah, this is some. So I started asking about you, and all the stories were the same. Well, I know her because she was on the softball board, or I know her because she used to bring all the sliced oranges to the soccer field. Mm-hmm. All these little
all
things.
The treats, yeah.
And it's like, oh, she's a people first person.
Mm-hmm. Made sure everyone was taken care of. I remember one time Ryan was at Hanford High playing softball. We had gone to a game in Paso Robles.
Yeah.
And on our way back, we witnessed, well, we didn't see the accident firsthand, but we saw that there was an accident. And as we were driving by, I was like, that's so-and-so from your team. And so we pulled over to make sure they were okay and stayed with them until the ambulance, I think they were taken away by ambulance, but made sure she was okay. She ended up having a concussion, but I think she had reached out, her mom had reached out or something on one of the media platforms and said, she goes, I still remember the day you guys stopped and
Checked
helped
on
and
us,
made
yeah.
sure we're okay. And
Instead of just driving by.
I had totally forgot about that had happened. I was like, oh, that's right. I do
Probably
remember that
because
now.
it's your nature. You know, it's
So-
like you do that all the time. So
So,
it wasn't
yeah.
anything that you wouldn't do otherwise.
Yeah. She goes, you stayed to make sure we're okay. You were texting her to make sure she got okay. And
Oh, man.
so,
That's
yeah, just things like that.
little things. So when you think about Zachary and Ryan now, how would you like them to be remembered?
That they would always put a smile on someone's face, whether it be a joke or something they did. I remember Victor saying, her softball coach saying, I don't know what it is about that girl, but she goes something. He goes, it's just something about her that
Mhm.
she'll just make you laugh and just
Smile.
And I was like, okay. Because sometimes I want to tear my hair out because of her, but if she's doing good elsewhere, okay,
Yeah.
I
Well,
can deal with that.
Yeah, because, you know, I talk about this in my class as well, that there's a lot that we're taking in subconsciously as children from our parents. You know, and we grow up and we get older and we're like, man, I sound like my dad right now. But I told myself I wouldn't be, and I don't even remember him saying that, but I feel like him
Sounds
right
like
now.
something he would
And
say.
you know what it is? They're subconsciously they're taking in who we are, and so sometimes people say, you know, it's not so much what you say to your kids that matters; it's what you do around them.
Yeah.
And your kids saw you do for others, and that's the people that they became.
Yeah.
Beautiful people. Beautiful people.
They were. So, yeah.
That's amazing. This episode's dedicated to Ryan Hulbert and Zachary Hulbert, to be remembered forever and recognized for the wonderful people that they were. The tragedy was one day in their lives, but there were several other years that they were doing amazing things in this world. Remember those things, and remember the courage of the woman who stands before us, Estella Hulbert.
Thank you.
We're so grateful for you being here today.
I was glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. As always, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, please like and subscribe. Share today's episode with someone who may be struggling, who may be wondering, how am I going to get through the next 24 hours? Because if you want to see what grit, what resilience looks like, she's sitting right here with me. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
As always, RobLive saying love, peace, and chicken grease. We out.